It is.
It's all happening.
Here we are.
Thank you, Brooklyn Gold.
And everyone in the back. Everyone in the side.
We're live here from the Brooklyn Bowl, Las Vegas. I want to thank our friends at Relics and the Brooklyn Bowl for having us. This is awesome. We're so happy to be here. My name's RJ. Nice to meet you all. I'm here with a few people. The man next to me is named Benji Eisen.
Hello.
The person next to him is named Brad.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. And Matt Dwyer is over on the end there.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Brad.
Matt Dwyer.
Brad. Hi. Hello. How are you? Fine. Hope you have a good time tonight.
Thank you.
What an amazing situation we're in. Benji, I was talking to our friend Brian Brinkman the other day. I think he maybe was the first person to say that it's the fish situation right now is just like completely disorienting.
It's very disorienting.
Doesn't it feel like every show
topsy-turvy?
Yeah. So what's going on? Well, I want to ask you later, what does it mean for Halloween, which is probably nothing. But how do you feel about last night, and do you feel disoriented by fish at the moment?
I feel very disoriented by fish at the moment, and I feel like part of it's the setlist construction, which has been a big topic of conversation, because they are taking songs and they're playing them they're putting them in different positions than they usually would, but that by itself doesn't do much. It's how they're doing it. And I thought that last night was a really good example of them taking all the stuff that we are slowly learning that we love about 4.0, and last night they took the 4.0 fish sound, and they also incorporated a lot of throwbacks to the entire fish history.
Yeah.
You know, like if you look at the set list last night, that could have been a set list from, throughout their career, at least points of it, touch points, such as, when they went into the Reba, immediately there are parts of that Reba that recalled the Reba from '98 that they played at the Greek Theater in LA, that went into Walk Away, and of course then they did Walk Away.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Our friend Sam, who hasn't seen a fish show since '97, came last night, and in the middle of Reba, Brad, I think he asked you, he was like, what song is this? And you were like, it's actually still Reba.
It's still Reba, Sam.
And he was like, yes. Matt, this is a 21-minute Axilla part 2 in the second slot. I mean, what's going on?
Well, and it's enough for them to just play that, but then take it out in that ending section. Don't shine that light.
Don't shine that thing in my face, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like everything's on the table.
Yeah.
There's really nothing that you could say, no, they won't do that. And I think that's what makes it so exciting to see the band right now.
Yep. Brad, why do you think they're just having fun? Like, I'm trying to figure out why this is happening and what's happening with like their playing and their chemistry that's allowing this to happen. Do you have any theories?
No, maybe it's all coming full circle for them. They see it all, and it's like confidence. It's all the time. Everything is really just melding together. I guess I don't know. The ass handed to open the second set last night is a play for the 3.0, 4.0.
Yeah.
But then the rest of that second set, as Benji was saying, it's like it's old school. I mean, it's they're starting to realize they don't have limits.
Yeah.
There was a point in Chula Vista where they played Piper into Piper.
Man, if I could have known 20 years ago that I'd be at a venue talking about a song called Ass Handed with you guys, I'd be like really pleased with myself.
As soon as they played Ass Handed, did you not know the Tweezer was coming up?
Yeah. Such a great drop. The best.
Yeah.
Matt, what were your thoughts on the first set? Like, do you have highlights? Are there any parts that stick out to you?
Besides the Axilla, I think the Mike song is fantastic. It went in a direction the Mike song hasn't gone much recently. Not just your standard Mike's Jam, which I know a lot of people were looking for. Which brings me to a question that I want you guys to consider. Do you think that some of these things are happening organically, or do you think they have a little bit of a punch list of like, here's some stuff that's really going to knock them dead. Let's jam out Mike's. Let's break out Axilla Part 2 again.
I was saying with Brian on the review from Thursday night, that they had to have had the descending number list had to have come to them between Santa Barbara and the first night of Vegas, right? Because Trey wouldn't normally play 46 days twice, right? They don't
Yeah.
do back-to-back songs. So I think maybe a little bit of both, you know. A punch list, I like the idea of a punch list. Yeah, I don't know, RJ.
For 4 nights, I think they like. I feel like this 4 night thing might be planned out in a way that, at least with songs, I don't feel like they're like. I don't know. I go back to the Baker's Dozen, you know, with the poster board and Trey like constantly rewriting stuff. I feel like this 4 night run is somewhat planned in that way. But maybe there's stuff that goes in and out of the rotation or things that are possible or whatever, because it seemed really organic in a lot of ways.
I gotta say, I saw the Phoenix was Mike's Hydrogen Week of last night too.
Yeah.
That's not very 3.0 of them
Sure.
to not throw something in between there.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
a straight up old school Mike group.
Yeah.
Twice in a row. Yeah.
What do you think, Benjamin?
I mean, I think you're onto something there, and I think that like I don't know how scripted these 4 nights are per se in terms of locked in. I think that there is a general like I think the first night was very scripted.
Yeah.
Right. Even if that was
Yeah.
the day of,
Yeah.
it was very scripted and thought out. And I do think that the first night is definitely going to be in hindsight of it's a clue into Halloween. Maybe it's throwing us off the scent because they've also have done that plenty of times in the past. But at the same time, and also just the idea of a number set in Vegas exists without Halloween. You know, like they could just like how
Exactly right.
when they did Dips, when they do most shows spell something starting with S, and then the next year they do the F your face, and then you know, like I feel like it was a very fishy thing for them to do. My question that I'm curious about is, and I think you were getting at this, when they played Axela, for instance, do they before they go on stage say, "Hey, let's because I
let it
remember
go.
that for Alpine Valley, when they did the Ruby Waves, Trey mentioned that they were going to. They knew they were going to blow out some song,
Yeah.
and they knew they wanted to jam, but
Yeah.
it wasn't quite set in stone.
Yeah, he
And
thought it was going to be Mercury.
he thought it was going to be Mercury.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And it didn't work. And so I was talking to Aaron McNair from the Disco Biscuits about Disco Biscuit jams and how scripted they are when they decide when they go into their own type 2, how much of it when they explore a song that they've never explored before, is that just spontaneous? And he said absolutely not. He said they don't practice it, but they do in sound check. They're like, you know what? Let's really explore this one tonight. Let's push this one out. And I feel like with Fish, like they don't need to have that conversation. It can just be a look right at the moment where it's like, let's go, let's do this.
That's really interesting. Matt, as a musician, do you think that it's like can they go out there and like start playing Axela and then like halfway through just decide that this is gonna go out there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're masters of listening to each other,
Yeah.
right? So they can adapt and they can fly like a flock of birds and change at a moment's notice. And like you were just saying, Benji, I think sometimes there's a little bit of premeditation, but it just doesn't necessarily work exactly like they think it's going to, but something can happen.
It kind of arms them at the ready. They're like,
Yes.
okay, we're going to be ready for the unexpected,
Yeah.
and we know we're going to do something here that we haven't done before. What is it? And then they all kind of search for it, and then maybe it's something as simple as Trey just getting that look, being like, this is where we're going to do it. Yeah.
Inspiration has to happen.
Were you guys surprised that last night wasn't a themed show after the number show from the night before?
I mean, I'm not surprised by anything at this point, but I almost expected a theme show, and I think I texted you guys at the beginning of the show. I was like, maybe they're gonna do like, because they opened up with Olivia's Pool and then they did Axela 2. Maybe it's like lost songs, and they're gonna play like Black Eyed Katie tonight. They're gonna, and of
Well,
course, not
Attila also had the pool theme.
Yes.
Pool and pool. So
Yes.
we had 2 pool songs.
yes.
Brad, do you think is any more thematic stuff happening, or was that just like a one-off?
Yeah, I think it was a one-off. I like Benji saying that it threw us off the scent. They kind of focus over here, and meanwhile they've got some big surprise coming.
The Fish from the Road Twitter, which rarely does anything besides just post set lists. They posted the picture, with the numbers from the first night, and people, I mean, yesterday I'm sure you guys saw it. Like there were hundreds of people doing research trying to figure out what 4/6 8-0 means.
Yeah.
And like, I guess that's just part of the game, right?
Yeah, they don't do that by accident, but sometimes it doesn't have any meaning, which is why it's intentional. They're like, we're going to, what will happen if we do this?
Yeah.
Because people are looking for these patterns.
Yeah.
We're looking for these patterns.
Always.
You know, and I think Ari Fink from Sirius told me immediately as soon as those numbers came up, he did some research and he goes, so on this day in history, another brick in the wall part 2 is number 1. You know?
I mean, yeah, it's all misdirection though.
It's
at
all
this point,
misdirection.
right?
Well,
Great.
you know what isn't misdirection is so I feel like before the wingsuit Halloween, there's a lot of chatter that this is the year they're going to play Led Zeppelin, and then they did the Led Zeppelin show before, right? To be like, we're not going to play it, however,
Yeah.
we're still going to give you some Led Zeppelin. This is what and I feel like with Hendrix, every year that Phish has ever done Halloween, you always hear a faction of the fan base say they're going to do Hendrix.
Yeah.
And I feel like the first night here was Trey throwing the bone to us. Being
Yeah.
like, we're not going to do Hendrix. However, you want to hear it?
Yeah.
We are going to do Hendrix.
Do you guys think maybe there's some Pink Floyd coming tonight? Because that's been like the chatter, at least on the internet, about this improv style. Which, Matt, I wanted to ask you, like, do you see this improv style kind of continuing from summer into fall? We've talked about this a little bit before, but this like growling alien guitar into 2001 the first night was like, I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit of a unique sound or a unique journey. Like, do you feel like this is all kind of building on each other in terms of their improv?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's not necessarily a theme in the style of jamming, like stylistically, like this is the funk year, this is the Plinko year. It's about the sounds that they're making, these synth-heavy sounds that get into deep space, but Fishman not laying back and still
Yeah.
kind of driving rhythms forward. That's been very, very exciting. The other thing I see a lot of is art from restriction, right? So one of the things that I didn't even realize during the number show the other night that was pointed out is the first set had 6 songs, the second set had 9 songs. They played it 6 was 9. But think about just like the Fuck Your Face show years ago.
Yeah.
That was such a great show because they had to play a certain amount
True.
of songs in each set. And so it's like, well, we've got to turn 5 or 6 songs into a 75 to 90 minute set.
Yeah.
How are we going to do that? And then the flow comes
Right.
from that.
I mean, the Tab tour is really just like carrying over into Phish, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
just
Big time.
every song is 20 minutes and it doesn't matter what song it is.
And Trey's using those effects and using the new sounds from Fish 4.0, which brings me to this. And this, I think I have a question out of this for you, Matt. And that's that, or for all of us to ruminate on. And that's that when Fish came out swinging this summer, and they had these new tones and they had these new effects, and they all were kind of playing with it. And suddenly you could have a band that didn't sound like the traditional Fish, but instead the guitarist could sound like the keyboardist, and the keyboard player could sound like a bassist. And it made me think, because at that point I knew that they had been rehearsing Halloween, because Fishman had dropped a hint about it on Sirius Radio, where he said, we rehearsed, but it wasn't necessarily for the summer, it was for the fall, which, is obviously a Halloween reference, in that they rehearsed in the, yeah. And so I think my question is that, do you think that the new sounds that they've been experimenting with, and granted, to put it in a historical context, every single Fish tour always has new little nooks and crannies, and the tour is kind of defined by them exploring those nooks and crannies in the context of their canon. And so at first I thought that's what they were doing here, but then there's also, if they were to do something like a Pink Floyd on Halloween, or they were to do something where there's suddenly a European disco band, where the guitar needs to sound like a keyboard, is this setting it up?
Maybe, but I honestly can't think of an example where that's happened before.
Right.
Usually the
Yeah.
changes in sound come after Halloween. It's not like they were playing like polyrhythmic stuff in September or October of '96. So that it could be intentional, it could be a red herring again. The thing I like about the mixing of the tones, like you said, like the guitar can sound like a synthesizer and stuff, is as soon as Trey starts sounding like a synthesizer, Paige is probably thinking, I need to get into a different space. I can't do synthy stuff, so maybe I need to hop over to Rhodes or something like that. So I think they're just challenging each other to think outside of the box of like the tones that they usually create in the space they usually play in.
I'll mention the guitar sounding like anything. Again, a reference to our friend Sam, who hadn't seen a show since the '90s. He turned to us last night and said, "Is there a saxophone on stage?"
He was like, is that a baritone sax? And I was like, dude, there's 4 people on stage. You can
You see
clearly
everything.
not see a saxophone. Sorry, Sam. It was a good point. But going back to even back to '96 when Trey was on the mini kit, he's sort of like I guess consistently challenging himself to see what kind of rhythms he can match from the other members of the band.
Yeah, well-
This feels like this similar thing.
The mini kid, he was stepping on Fishman's toes,
Yeah.
and then now he's stepping on Mike's toes,
Yeah.
or Paige's.
Or pages,
Yeah,
depending on the moment.
depending on the moment. Because there's been moments this tour where he's definitely going down to the low register where it
Yeah.
sounds like synthy bass, so he's almost playing
Yeah.
both their parts. And that's why the thought's good at Halloween, because it's like they're almost setting it up to be a band that can play a non-guitar band, like a European disco band
Wow.
or an LCD sound system or something like that.
Do you guys think on an interpersonal level, do you think that the other band members feel challenged? Like when Trey is like, all right, now I'm in Mike's space or I'm in Paige's space. Do you think that elevates stuff? I don't know, it's like any sport, right? You have a great player on your team and everyone kind of rises. Is that a thing, or are we just
I think
mythologizing?
didn't Fishman absorb the mini kit? His kit now is
Yeah, sure.
it's huge. Yeah, just takes it all.
But do you guys think they're playing? I mean, Matt, do you think that's a thing? Do you think the rest of the band feels challenged if it's Trey's in Mike's space, so Mike needs to is that part of what's making them play really well right now?
Oh, for sure. I mean, they're challenged in a good way. They've been doing this for so long that anything that can have them thinking in a different way is going to be it's very, very stimulating artistically.
Benji, what's going to happen on Halloween?
Well, since you asked, I've been holding out this whole time.
3 sets of
I mean, I can't predict the future. I can barely predict the past. But I do think that I have some very solid thoughts and then a lot of very vague thoughts. My solid thoughts are this: it's very easy. It's not musical. I think that this is the year that Fish, who has always been, by playing Halloween in Las Vegas, they've always threatened to do the Las Vegas style spectacle.
Yeah.
And I feel like this might be the year for it. It makes a lot of sense. We're all coming. We're not out of a pandemic, but we've all been so isolated. And I feel like coming back and with a bang in terms of I almost want to say pyro. I think that there'll be a lot of special effects. I think that Fish is going to spare no expense on the production. Musically, I have no idea. I mean, musically, I do think it'll be original. I think it'll be a twist. I think I like the idea that was mentioned earlier of kind of like a curveball version. I do think that whatever we get, one, none of us are going to predict it, and 2, it is going to be a very original take on Fish's originals. Whether that means it's
Yeah.
new material or very old material revisited. I don't know.
I think the spectacle thing, I totally agree with. Brad, Matt, do you guys have any predictions?
I always go back to the Castaway Box and how they change, production. They change the entire set, white everything, Trey with the strap. I want that to happen again, but something different. So if it's fire, if it's,
Pyro.
if it's a lot of other people on stage, spitting
Hydraulics.
I
Yeah.
like the idea of fire. Let's just say there's going to be fire.
Yeah, I
Matt, what
want
do
there
you
to be
think?
fire.
The only thing I'm 100% sure of is that there will be some sort of production element. There's going to be, I don't know if maybe they're going to play in the round again like they did with the Gem Truck or something like that, but I did notice some additional speakers and lighting trusses and stuff on the ceilings. I think there's going to be something that happens. Musically, I have no idea.
We had Matt. We heard from Trey in our interviews for Alive Again, and I think a lot of that made it on the podcast. But he talked a lot about how the Broadway experience and production and a show has always been part of his thing, and it's I think more now. So it feels like that's where Trey's mind is, which we know from between me and my mind. It's basically him selling ideas to the rest of the band.
Yeah.
So
And he's always loved pyro.
yeah.
It's festivals. He always said with going back to Clifford Ball, he said, "I want to set more shit on fire."
Yeah. I want to take a minute to say thanks to everyone who's watching online. Hi, everybody. And we have a bunch of people here at the Brooklyn Bowl, Las Vegas. I want to say hi to hi everybody. I want to say hi to my friend Gene, who just got here, who wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my friend Drew giving Gene tickets for the next 2 nights. So this community is awesome and allows more of my friends to be here. Thank you guys for coming. Everybody gets in.
And yesterday I talked to Brian and his wife Susie.
Yeah.
She's here as well.
Hey,
Like,
Susie.
yeah, we get
Susie wearing her Nassau Roses shirt, which is just incredible. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us. What else should we talk about? I mean, we can talk about a lot of stuff. Benji,
Yes. Go on.
how are you?
Good.
Do you think that one of the first things I said to Brad when we woke up in our hotel room today is, if you can find another band that's playing this well 35 years into their
You
career,
can't.
I'll show you the fucking
Yeah,
door.
you can't. No, you can't. You absolutely can't. And so on my way over here today, I met a person in the elevator, which is also just what a fish, thing
Yeah,
to say.
yeah.
But I met him in the elevator, and I assumed that he was a Fish fan, based off of just like his look, and also, he said I saw the greatest thing. He said last night I saw the greatest thing that I've seen in years, and I said, oh, you were at the show, and he said, yeah, and he said this band Fish, and he starts explaining it to me, and I was like, oh, I'm well aware. And he said, well, I had friends that saw this band back in high school, and I saw them 20 years ago. And he's like, I don't follow them. I'm not in Vegas to see them. He was in Vegas to gamble.
Wow.
But he said, and he took the right bet, because he's like, I saw Fish last night. And he goes, I immediately texted all of my friends, whatever you're doing the next 2 nights, you have to see this band.
Wow.
And then he goes to me, I don't understand. They don't sound anything like they did 20 years ago. And he goes, I think they sound better.
That is awesome.
Well, so my response was, yeah, you got your ass handed to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, what's like how do they keep being so creative and pushing themselves?
I think that it's because they love doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many bands that are out there that are just doing it for money and to have a lifestyle. These guys genuinely love what they're doing. And I think especially this year, after coming out of the pandemic, being cooped up. I mean, we know you mentioned the Alive Again interviews. All Trey talked about was how much he wanted to get out and play. He was like boxed up in his apartment. He needed to get in front of people. That was a big part of why the Beacon Jams happened, was just to get him onto a stage playing the electric guitar. And like I said over the summer, it's like you let the bull out of the pen, and these guys are just ready to go.
Yeah.
RJ, last night I saw the show with our friend Dave Kalarka, Mr. Minor.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot on the way out about whether or not, like, how planned certain, like, I feel like last night referenced a lot of parts of their career, and we both came to the conclusion that they're on the same ride we are. They're just as amazing as we are.
Yeah.
And at the end of the night, we're all part of the same experience.
Yeah.
And they just happen to be up on stage.
And Trace kind of said that, right? He said
Yeah.
that in Eugene. He was like, we're part of this too. We just happen to be up here.
So a night like last night, I feel like they walk off just as like, oh my God, what just happened?
Well, and here's the flip side of they're playing so well after 35 years. It's not just that, but how is it that between the four of us, we've probably seen this band 500, 600 times, and we can't figure out what's going on right now? We're still confused. So I mean, that's
right. So true. This venue is really cool. I remember, Matt, in one of the side conversations for our Live Again interviews, remember Trey was talking about like doing acoustic shows, and I think you said, well, if you just gotta like hope the fans are good, and he was like, I don't want our fans to be good. I want our fans to be bad, which is so awesome.
yeah.
And like this feels like a venue where like there was videos going around of the security guards all dancing. It's a great venue. I feel like the energy in the crowd is really good and positive and kind of feeds them.
Totally palpable. I noticed the first night even. I think I talked to you guys about it. The first two was the place was boiling. Like it just looked like it was alive, and Trey knew it. He came around the monitors as he does.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's like that's why I come right
RJ, I don't know if this was what you were referencing when you said about, the staff dancing and all that last night. But there was a point last night where I was dancing with my eyes closed, and suddenly I see bright lights like an usher's flashlight. And so I thought maybe there's a ruckus, maybe there's an issue. And I looked up, and it's two. They were definitely ushers, definitely not your typical Fish fan in terms of the look, and they definitely were on the clock working.
Yeah.
And they both had flashlights, and they were dancing with them, and
Nice.
boogieing with them, and they had that look in their eyes like, what is this? This is amazing.
That's-
They were swept away.
Yeah.
They were swept away.
Did you say don't shine that thing in my face, man?
I blew it. I blew it, man.
It's your only chance.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I mean it, man. Don't shine that
Yeah.
thing in my face.
It's incredible. All right. Well, let's take a couple more minutes. What do you guys think? I mean, these are such silly questions. What do you guys think is in store for the rest of the year? Like, does this just continue, or do they? I guess depending on what happens at Halloween, right? Like, if there's new material, if it's original, that starts a whole new era. Like, how do they wrap this year up? Because this has been, I think this is the best year of Fish since 98, 97.
Let's
Like,
not
how-
forget that
Fred, your mic went out somehow.
yeah, but here,
Yeah.
here's mine. It's good. Let's not forget that it's basically been this summer and fall tours are, I think they're combined. And if you think in between, Trey was playing tag, so there's been no stop,
Yeah.
right, since the summer. And that, I think, leads to this, the incredible.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we need to consider with this is that the way that they're playing the X Factor this year, the CK5 of the year, like the fifth band member, has been the threat of having it all pulled out under you at any moment. I feel like there's that in the very beginning there was the concern of this tour could be canceled because we don't know what's happening with the global pandemic. There could be new regulations. They could, California might not allow anyone to be inside, and so there's all that. And then we saw that play out on Trey Tour, where it was the last man standing tour. And Trey was just like, come hell or high water, I'm playing these shows.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to stop me. And every single night had that urgency to it, where it was, I'm going to play because all I know is that I can right now. And
It could be the
tomorrow, who
last-
knows?
Today could be the last show.
Today could be the last show. And he's been
Sure.
playing that. And I feel like every single show that we've had this year has had that sense of urgency and that almost like concern.
Yeah.
Where I got to get it out now because who knows what comes next.
I guess that sort of goes the way you were saying, Matt, earlier about like the restrictions, but it's sort of like scarcity pushes you to be innovative because you don't know how much time you have.
Well, yeah, and plus a lot of not just Fish, but so many artists have been sitting around at their houses, in their home studios, just shedding for the last 18 months, just getting their chops back in shape, learning new things. Trey told us he was playing guitar nonstop, just walking around the house all the time with the guitar on. Somebody made up the phrase to me this summer, Fishman is drumming for his life. And I think that's so true. He just seems like he has to win the prize every night. We know how much he practices on a regular basis. So
Yeah.
being cooped up in Maine for so long, I think he
He,
gave the
uh,
arms a workout.
Matt, I think Fishman's also been playing like a guy that's just lost the general store.
Yes, yes.
We have an amazing crowd here. Does anyone have anything they want to say or ask of our esteemed panelists, myself not included?
You can have my microphone.
Hey guys, I was just curious how you think the changes in rigs for the band members have affected their sound this tour, also through the summer. Trey has a new amplifier, Paige has rearranged his rig a little bit. They all seem to have some new toys to play with, and I'm curious how you think that is impacting the overall palette of the band's sound.
Great question. Good point.
There's always Sonic. Benji, I think you said this before. Like, there's always little changes from year to year, new effects, new toys, new color palettes of color to play with. The biggest thing that stands out to me was the change that Paige made to move his organ to the back and now have his Rhodes and his synth right in front of him. I think that's making him look at Trey more and also not default to the organ and the clav, which he was probably doing a lot just because he was facing that direction. That's been one of the biggest impacts to me.
I agree.
Yeah.
I love watching. We all watched Trey, give us his rig rundown earlier this year, and it was an incredible video. But he has such control of it. I mean, he always does. But to me, it's the confidence just emanates of him having control of that rig, and I think the others are there as well.
Matt, this might speak to something that you and RJ, when you guys were talking to Trey for Live Again, that maybe he touched upon. But to me, a lot of the times when he has a new rig or just new toys to play with, that tour that follows becomes a workshop kind of. Like he's workshopping these, and you can see him you can see the light bulbs go off, and you can see him go, oh, I can do that with this.
Yeah.
Whereas with this tour, though, I feel like he's almost like he's already workshopped it.
He already knows it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian, our co-host Brian, who saw them in Chula Vista, said that the Chula Vista show was like just watching a practice session. And I feel like that this whole tour, in a way, is sort of like watching one extended sound check. Like they're just sort of like doing whatever they want, but he seems very comfortable. I mean, in that video, I mean, Matt, maybe you understood what he was talking about, but I mean, it was totally insane that like how much detail he goes into about his particular rig.
He goes back.
And it wasn't like there's no detail on a dress. I actually thought the end of the video when he's like, maybe if you see us, you'll see this soon, and then he like starts that loop at the very end of the video. I kind of thought that's what was happening at the beginning of 2001 the other night. Yeah. He like recreated that, but he's very comfortable with it at this point.
He's so comfortable. The other thing that blows my mind, I don't know if there's any guitarists here, but Trey has incredible core strength and balance because he does those like moves where he taps 5 different things on his pedal board. If I try to like tap the tempo on my delay pedal for like one measure, I almost fall over on stage. So I am super jealous of Trey.
The other thing I think that needs to be said is, RJ, you're talking about how Chula Vista was almost like a sound check jam, and historically, Phish has always talked about how we can. Trey has said repeatedly in the past that some of their best music comes out of the sound checks because they're so relaxed. And to me, there's just such a stark image of them in Atlantic City watching the live stream of it, and there's a sea of people on the ocean. It's a very energetic scene, and in the past it would have been that Bruce Springsteen and Trey coming out and the showmanship, and instead when you watch that video, the whole band, but Trey especially, the way he's walking across the stage and also what he's playing is so relaxed. It's as if he's in his living room.
Yeah, Matt, you said that about one of the shows recently, that it was like really laid back. I forget which one that was. It was one of the, I don't know if it was Phoenix or LA or maybe it was one of the Eugene shows when we were doing our recap.
Oh, I think it was Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara.
It
was just like super chill.
And it doesn't sound that way. If you just listen to the audio and you're not sure what's going on, it's intense because it's Phish. But then you're watching it and you're like, oh man, you're like, he could just as easily be like, oh hey, can you grab me a beer from that, the fridge? Not a beer because, can you grab me an iced tea? Cliff Bar. Yeah, Cliff Bar.
Do you guys think, is it possible that they could try for the second set tomorrow night to recreate whatever they were going to do Curveball late night? I've heard people say that, and like the way they're playing and the sound check kind of extended jam vibe, is that like, could that happen?
I think it'd be that times 2. Whatever they were playing for Curveball,
sure,
like elevated.
Yeah. Good point.
Well, we know historically the Casbah Vox came out of Curveball being Curveball. So it kind of made sense that for Halloween, for the second Halloween after that, after a curveball of a year and a half, that they would double down.
I mean, just the way that they're playing right now, it makes me think, like, I don't know how much practice they did, like, up at the barn or rehearsals or whatever, but they're pretty fucking locked in. So, I don't know, that leads me to believe that something Halloween related was practiced. I guess maybe that's true every Halloween.
Thank
you so much.
Practice plus fire.
Practice plus fire. All right. Anyone else have any comments or questions before we hot take ourselves straight off the stage? This is so great to have everybody here. Thank you guys for coming just to say hi and support us. Quite a journey. Brett and I, we did our first live show at American Beauty, rest in peace, in New York City right before the 729 show at the Baker's Dozen. And we've come a long way. Now we're at the Brooklyn Bowl. And we're going to be back tomorrow, which is awesome. Oh, man. What do we got? Brad and I have complimentary costumes planned.
Reveal.
My wife and Tom Marshall are the only people who've seen it. I sent a picture to Tom because he was going to be here, and then he decided not to come. So I sent him a picture of my costume. We can't tell you guys until tomorrow. Are you going to reveal yours?
I might as well reveal it right now. But most of my costumes require a little bit of context. This one, though, also, I felt like I may have overestimated the amount of people that saw the TV show Loki. But on Loki, there's the idea. So it's not Loki and it's not a character. It's an idea from there, and that's that. It's his variant, right? Like there's all these different Loki variants. It's caught in the Time Variance Authority, and so I thought, well, there's two versions of me, and there's the fish variant, and then there's countless other little variants. Yeah. But the fish variant might be my favorite. Probably my favorite version of my. I think my favorite version of me is my fish variant. So I'm going as a fish variant.
It's my favorite version of you too. Matt, are you gonna reveal?
I just grabbed a bunch of random stuff out of our costume box. I got wigs, I got hats. We'll see how it all works together.
He's also available for weddings and bar mitzvahs.
Yes.
I want to ask Benji. I want to ask you one more question because when you're not up here talking to us, you're managing Bill Kreutzmann and working on Billy and the Kids and a bunch of other stuff. What do you think is the next 6 to 12 months of live music? Like, is it barreling forward and we're going to be back kind of where we were 2 years ago?
I mean, I think it's impossible to say because the pandemic is not over and we don't quite, there are a number of things we don't know yet. However, it does bring up a good point in that I was talking with Aaron Magner from the Disco Biscuits, who's also in Billy and the Kids, and we were talking about how artists have the one thing that artists do not have is time. The time is not their own. And so in the beginning of the pandemic, when everything stopped, all of a sudden, all these artists that are all, art needs time to be created. And so that's why Trey and Tom go off on their songwriting retreats. Yeah. And that's why historically you have writing retreats. And when bands would record albums in the past, when the recording process was different and you didn't have Pro Tools and couldn't do it in your living room, bands would go to a location and blow all the record labels' money on going out late night to the bars and then spending the days in the studio. And I feel like the difference here is that in the beginning of the pandemic, there was one of my immediate thoughts was, oh my God, the art that's going to come out of here is going to be amazing. We're going to have all these incredible pandemic albums. However, the first half of the pandemic was a lot of PTSD for everybody. And so for artists, like just because they have the time, the muse isn't necessarily there. Yeah. And then I feel like the second half of that is when we're going to see a lot of, I know Strand of Oats just released an album that Strand of Oats is very Fish influenced, not musically, but as a huge Fish fan, and that album it's like one of the lyrics was like, I need human beings, and I believe that ecstasy happens when we are all together, and I feel like we're going to see a lot of albums like that. My Morning Jacket, we're going to see a lot of that. I'm curious mostly about what happens with Fish, like how the pandemic influenced new music being written.
The War on Drugs album that came out yesterday is incredible and very focused on those themes of isolation and everything that happened to all of us.
But getting back to I think the reason why you asked this for Dead and Company for Bill Kreutzmann, I said them in the very beginning. I said, you've been practicing social distancing your entire life. You got this. And so I don't know how much it's going to influence the Dead and Company, other than it took away time that they wanted to be on the road. And these guys, I know Billy was going absolutely crazy in Hawaii. He was loving being on the organic farm. He was loving having the time with his wife, but he also couldn't wait to get back out and play.
I will say, if you guys haven't seen the video, the Hawaii Dead and Company videos, with James Casey and Santana.
Great from Mahalo, yeah.
I
Billy
mean-
and the Kids. Billy and the Kids.
Billy and the Kids, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, that was absolutely insane. Aaron told me a couple stories about hanging out with Santana. I mean, like getting Santana to come and hang out with those guys and play, it seemed like a pretty special situation.
It also gave me insight into a lot of like the stuff we're talking about with Fish, like how premeditated is it? Whereas with the Santana thing, it was literally me going, you know, Billy, Carlos lives nearby. We should call him up.
Uh-huh.
And he goes, well, you know what? What do we say? I said, well, tell him it's your birthday and that you want to play. So you know, he reached out. He said, Carlos, it's my birthday. You want to play? And Carlos said, sure. What song should I? You know, give me a song. So I came up with I think 2 or 3 songs, and I sent him the versions that you know would be like the learn this and familiarize. He gets there. He didn't do any of that. He looked at the set list and he goes, oh yeah, I got this whole thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, last question. One song prediction for tonight. Matt,
Yeah.
Brad.
I want a Divided Sky.
All right. You know they've never played Divided Sky in Vegas.
I did not know that.
What do you
I want maybe a Piper into Piper.
think?
Type 2. I want a Type 2 jam.
Type 2. Okay.
You think we're gonna get a Type 2 jam tonight?
I'll allow it.
Not likely. Not likely. Tonight's going to be, you know,
Type
17 songs in the first set, 21 songs in the second set, just straight through album. It's going to be a couple albums.
Do you think we're ever going to get the set that we've all been waiting for, where it's a Tweezer first set, you know, or a Mike's first set and then a second set Wikipod?
Not this run. Not this run. I'm going to go with Harry Hood. I want to thank everybody for watching us on the internet. Thank you guys. It's incredible that we're here talking about Fish on the internet and people are paying
I don't know
attention.
what he's talking about. This is a green screen, and we are actually all in a loft in Brooklyn right now.
Wouldn't that be nice? Thanks everyone for coming live here at the Brooklyn Bowl. And thanks everybody for tuning in at home. This is really fun. We're going to be back here tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So we'll see you guys then. Thank you so much. Have a good show, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.